Hello, Kansas and Western fans. Today it's time for another in my series on scene track plans and how I came up with them. And today we're going to talk about basically El Dorado and the refinery all in one, just because there's not a whole lot of track. So I should be able to go through this pretty quickly. So the main line comes around from Towanda first, and then the Wichita Yard, as you can see here. And that's what the prototype does. The Union Pacific side of the prototype, the whole thing in Wichita is Union Pacific, but particularly the east side of the yard goes in two directions. It goes north up to Harrington, and then I think it goes to Emporia, Kansas City. Someone else can help me with that. But the other line goes to El Dorado, and it's a one-way, not a one-way, but it's a dead-end route, basically. There's nowhere else to go but to El Dorado and then back. And so that's what I've recreated here. And one thing I wanted to do in this area that I haven't really done much in the rest of the layout was I wanted the main line to be a little bit more centered in the scene, just because on the rest of the layout, I don't have a whole lot of foreground scenery and things of that nature, like this pump jack here in the front and some trees and some other things. So that's why the line isn't all the way to the front. Plus, the research that I'd done on the industries that I wanted to include, which are all prototype industries, including their locations, didn't require a whole lot of structures that I couldn't sell the industry itself, or at least the size of it, by just having some structures placed up against the backdrop like you can see here. And it allowed me enough trackage to service those industries very similar to the prototype, because they really are just a few spurs. Now, this one is Mears fertilizer plant. It actually has 3 or 4 spurs in reality, but that's just so I can handle more traffic at one time. And since I wanted to squeeze more into this space, I chose to just keep it down to 2 spurs. And then down here we have BG Products and Barsol Chemical, which in reality are right next to each other. And so they are served by a single spur that comes off the main line, and then it splits off into 2, like you can see here, to serve each industry. Now, this small yard here in El Dorado represents where El Dorado actually has 2 small yards. This one I'm going to treat as a yard that serves all the industries in El Dorado, whereas in reality, there is no yard near Mears or Barsol Chemical on the west side of El Dorado. But there is one in town. There is one that serves the Union Tank Car Company, which is on the far wall, and we'll talk about that later. And then there's another one on the east end of town, which I'm not sure is even in use anymore. They might use it for a runaround track, I'm not sure. But that's the point of this yard, is to be able to serve all these industries and to help arriving trains and departing trains get organized with the cars that they need to push in and out of these plants. So further on down, I had to integrate a split off to the El Dorado Refinery, which in reality is served by the BNSF. Now, if you look on Google Earth, there is a way for for a train that comes from Towanda and El Dorado, or Towanda and Wichita, to reach the refinery, but you're definitely it's definitely a roundabout way to do it. And I'm not sure if it's ever done, just because BNSF serves the refinery and the Union Pacific doesn't. But it's possible. So I'm kind of taking dramatic or artistic license and generating that here on my layout. So that's how I'm able to access the refinery. And then what I put in here is just several different refinery tracks. Now, I've removed a lot of the structures here because I'm in the middle of painting track, as you can see. But these first 2 tracks on the left are for the actual terminal where oil or tank cars get loaded from the refinery. These next 2 tracks are just yard tracks for the refinery itself. So the refinery switcher can switch cars in and out of the terminal. And then this last track is actually for a coker unit, which does exist at the El Dorado Refinery. And so all of these are serviced by a switcher that pushes cars in and out as needed to be loaded. I don't think anything is unloaded at the refinery. However, a lot of refineries do have rail service, so they can bring in large tower sections and other equipment for the refinery, and that's what this final spur is here, which I've not yet got connected because I want to finish more of my actual refinery structures to make sure this line will fit in where it wants, or where I need it. But I do plan to have one of those large Liebherr or other cranes in place, because refineries basically have cranes on standby because they're constantly doing work that requires large equipment. And so this final spur here is to be able to bring that large equipment in on rail and then be lifted into position. Now, this is the main line here on the right, and I wanted to be able to use that space on the wall once I realized that I could without it impacting the rest of the room in a major way. And so the main line just follows through the refinery, which is also prototypical. A lot of tracks do go through refineries, although I would hope it will reduce speeds for the obvious risk. And then it wraps around on that lift out section to gain access to Union Tank Car. Now, the reason why this thing splits off to the right like it does is I wanted to be able to hide the fact that this main line continues on through the refinery and then kind of unprototypically crosses that aisle. So what I've done with this angle is I'm planting tanks on either side of it, and you've seen past videos or you'll see future videos where that's demonstrated, so that you kind of get the impression that the main line kind of disappears into who knows where. And that's the point of that, is to just kind of help with some scene separation between the refinery and Union Tank Car and that aisle over there. So that's the point of that. All right, I guess that's about it. It's not a very complex scene, but I wanted to explain, how I came up with the design and how it works. In operations, there's a single person that switches all the refinery traffic, and a single person that runs the locals from Wichita out here and then switches these industries per the prototype. So quite a lot of activity for not a whole lot of trackage. So that's something to keep in mind when you're designing your own, is you can generate more activity with less trackage if you just think about what you're trying to do. So if you have any questions, include them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them for you. Thanks everybody for your support and your interest, and thanks for watching.